Hello and welcome back to a much deeper dive into Captain of Industry. I am B-Ball Joe, and this is a restart. I want you to focus a little bit on this screen right here because everything that you can see here is actually part of the game. May not be implemented yet, but it's definitely part of the game. Let's look over here. That's a warship. There's some weapons that you research. I'm not sure what they do yet because they're not implemented, but this is like a mining tower. All these vehicles, this mining pit over here, your diggers, excavators actually dig that up, and you have to make these ramps so you can actually get down there. And this is not terraforming, it's just literally how the machines do it. And over here you have some iron formers, smelters, where you get iron from, or copper plates or other things. Normal storages, conveyor belts, very important. Harvesting trees, so you harvest all the resources on the map. Back here is a little bit of an oil industry going on with dumping waste water in the ocean, maybe getting water out of the ocean too. Then at farms here, there's irrigation or no irrigation, all that exists. The island itself is not flat, but it doesn't matter as much in this game because everything is a little more square on the building side. They are freely placeable, but the terraforming doesn't matter that much. And when you do have to do terraforming, like build a bridge across water, you can just use your excavators and dump trucks. Last thing, there's some space happening. I honestly don't know what happens with that yet because this is something that I haven't seen. It is in the research tree, but I have no idea what it does. I just know that it's planned. Cool, let's get started. So, right when you get started, you will talk to your crew, and your crew will tell you a couple things that you landed on this island, and that you need to get your resources straight, and you need to build a settlement and start from there. The first things you should do is a research lab and a furnace. Those are very important, but there's more. So let's pause, because if I don't, we will lose a lot of resources. Let's investigate what's on the screen. Population, this is pretty clear. You have your occupants. This is your maximum occupation of your little container city over here. Each of these blocks can hold up to 60 people. There's unity. Unity is also shown up here, the max unity that you can keep. That is a resource that you need to spend, for example, for research or for getting more people or for other things. And it's something, if you don't have it, you can really kind of hurt. You really need it. And then you have your population growth. Diseases that go around. I'm sure there's some way to address them later on, and then you can gain more unity, or you can lose unity, and there's your total unity that you gain a month. Right now, we just started. Nothing has happened yet. We are on January 1st, 0001. I'm sure that will be changed at some point, but that's where we are, and that's great. And then you have your food supply, which you can look up when you're clicking on this guy. The little food market tells you how much food you have, how much food is consumed every month, and all of this is pretty self-explanatory. And then you have amount of workers. Different buildings need different amount of workers, so that's your next tab. How many workers do you have available? 64 in this case. Nobody's working almost anywhere. A couple of people are actually doing something. Keep an eye on this. If you don't have workers available, you cannot build new industry. You can build new industries, but you can't use them. That's important. And unity, as I said, is a resource. Here's your health. It will give you an indication on your population. And then there's this, truck, seconds, and queue. That means how long will it take for the next task to be taken by an empty truck. Right now, 0 seconds. They will just go right away. Wonderful. That's what we want to see. A couple more things. The max number of trucks or vehicles that you can have right now. We have 6. Every vehicle will need a worker. That's why we have 5 workers working on market and 6 workers working on each truck. That makes sense because you don't want autonomous trucks right now. And then we have fuel. This one you can run out of pretty fast. And construction materials. There are different level of these. Right now we only have the white ones. That's fine. Then you have some weather, which matters because rain needs to be collected for drinking water. That's important. And then you also have a couple resources that are hidden. For example, copper, rubber, and there can be a lot of other ones here that we can look at on the island. For that, we can open up this little resource layer, and if we look at the rest of the island, if we zoom out a little bit, there are many resources on the island that you want to use and that you have to use, and they're all on these mounts, potentially. Well, You remember earlier when I showed you in the main picture or in the starting screen, the excavators will actually dig this up and then your trucks will have to move it around. We will get to that. It's not researched yet, but it's part of that. And there's sand, more copper, more sand. There's also just regular gravel and slag. You can use that. Here's some copper. And then here, if we turn off the resource layer, it doesn't look like there's anything, but it tells you, no, there's stuff in the ground. You just have to dig it up. And I think that's pretty cool. There's some coal here sticking out, but there's a lot more coal going around. And there's some gold here and more sand on the beach. That makes sense. Some copper and then oil right here. This is our only oil resource. So that's one of the things you actually have to go explore later. And exploring you can with your ship. You have to load a crew, so you need this many people available, and you have to fill it up with fuel, which right now we have some fuel, but we don't have any way to repair this because we need a repair dock. We have to research that later on. We're not there yet. But once your ship is ready, you can click tab, and that will open this little exploration screen. It's pretty neat. I'm not sure where they all want to go with this, but you can go to new exploration areas. This will take some time, just dates, and explore that. And along the way, you could find pieces for research availability. For example, you could find new resources. Apparently, there is a village where you can trade other items with. So there are things that you can interact with, and I'm sure at some point there may also be pirates because it is water. So water, ship, pirates. What I interpret there, but I may be completely wrong. Great, that's your start. The next thing, you actually need to worry about what you have up here. 40 months of food supply is not a lot, actually. It's not a lot at all. So one of the first things we have to do is look at our buildings that we have available. And these tabs are just their starter tabs. There can be a lot more. There's a smokestack, which a lot of industries will produce smoke, and it will tell you exactly what it takes. It takes steam high, it takes steam low, and then exhaust. So all of this, nice, cool. The charcoal maker will take wood, 20 of them, and create 4 coal. That makes sense. And then we'll also create 1 exhaust. That's important. And then you have other buildings like the blast furnace. It will take some metal. Right now, this is our only recipe. It will tell you the cost up here. It will tell you what it takes for the recipe. It will tell you how long it will take, and then we'll tell you what the output is. So you can't min-max this. Here, we can produce 4 coal in 40. Cool. We're using 3 coal in 20. So we need to find the common denominator here, which means we need 2 charcoal makers to keep 1 blast furnace running the whole time. But it's not efficient because making coal out of wood will just deplete our wood resources, which aren't infinite, when we have coal, for example, right here. So we just have to find a way to mine the coal pretty quickly. And that is good. Then you have more buildings, for example, transport. A molten channel, which goes directly into the ground, is the only one that can't be lifted off the ground. I'll show you what that means later. And then a regular pipe that can transport gases or liquids. And I'll tell you that right there. Different storages, we can research more. Right now, just a fluid storage for water or fuel or something like that. A research lab, which is very important. And it will tell you here, just because you run it, it costs 0.5 unity, which right now you only have 5. So that's expensive, but we need a research lab to move up our little industries here. So let's start building that because there's a research that's really important and I don't want to idle too long. Then there's more housing over here, 60 people, cost you 80 construction parts, but this one's the only one that is a little prescribed where you have to place it. You have to place it next to the existing housing units. I think that's okay. Then there's another food market if you really need that, which you don't necessarily do. Other things, there can be some type of harvesting here, and once we have mining enabled, there will be more on this side. You just select whatever trees you want to harvest in this area, and that's what they're going to harvest. It's pretty straightforward and actually pretty nice. If you don't like it, right-click and deselect everything. So these controls, pretty smooth, like it. And then messages, if you forget something, sometimes they will tell you how to do things and why to do things and how to do that. You can talk to them, and that is all great. Consider this your tutorial right now. I don't know if that's going to change eventually. There's not much to see there, besides a lot of reading. Great. Statistics. This will tell you your current everything that you have. How many products do you have? And this will be important because copper, actually everything that's in here is important. Construction parts are important, but you can get them back by just destroying some buildings, get the bulldozer out and say, I don't want this. And then you get back whatever it costs to create it first. And that is nice. We have the research lab done. What's this? Yeah, there's the research tab, just talking about it. Let's see. There is a lot here. I'm not going to go for everything because there's just too many things, but I will just glide over it so you can see how much there is. I mean, I can't even zoom in. There is a lot, just a lot. Look at this. And in the end, wormhole gate, Stardust collection, heavy cargo rocket, all those things, they just sound exciting to me. I don't know what they are, but they sound exciting. But let me tell you that you start here. Everything that's blue we already have, and everything that's green is stuff that we can now research. And then everything that's researched has a little connected path that is a prerequisite for another piece. Very important, very cool, very nice, very fun. So, what should you do first? It's a little bit up to you, but I can tell you there are many choices and only a few are the correct ones. And you have to balance what you want, what you have, what you need. The first thing we need is figure out how we get food. And the only way to get food right now is basic farming. Basic farming can give you a farm, and then you can harvest potatoes or green manure. I'll tell you what that is once we get that started. Let's move time a little bit, and the others are important, but let me tell you, you have to play this game a couple times to figure out what the right path is, and then you go to the next milestone and you figure out what the next path is after that, which changes everything you learned before. For example, I didn't know farming was a thing that I needed to do. So I forgot about that and everyone starved and I couldn't do anything anymore. Great. Figured out farming is really important. Then I figured out maintenance is important because maintenance, if we go here, I can show you what I'm talking about. Every start building or every start vehicle has a maintenance tab. And it starts out with more than 100% of, let's call it, health. It does that because you can't maintain them at the beginning. And every building that you build in the beginning has this high health. But once the health goes below 100%, you need to repair it. And you can repair it by either with Unity, but Unity is expensive because look right now. Our settlement has food, and that's the only thing we can give it, and the research lab takes half a Unity. So our only total income per month, which you see here, is 0.5 Unity. That's not a lot. And you need Unity to run your research lab, otherwise it doesn't work. So you can't just slap on more research labs to speed up your process either. All of that, relatively very important. So maintenance was important. Once I had this done, I was like, oh, they're golden construction materials, and I can get conveyor belts, which means you can remove your trucks from moving around and transporting everything. That is nice until you realize that while your maintenance is working, it requires copper, and copper is not produced until back here. And to get to this one, you have to research advanced diesel, shop dock repair, fuel station, and vehicles and mining. All of those, plus you have to build everything that is required to make copper. So getting copper got really expensive and everything slowed down and nothing was working anymore and maintenance was bad. And this is as far as I got. There is a lot more going on right after that, which just is me telling you there is a ton of replay value before you even understand all the things that you need to do. And every time you learn something, it changes everything you learned before, which is an awesome feature of this game. Let me tell you. Great. So when research is going, you can check it here. You can speed up the time or not, or do whatever you want. Once research is done, it will also tell it up here. And it'll just tell you, and you can do whatever you want. The first thing I'm going to do is place just one farm so we don't run out of food right away, because that will be embarrassing. And let me tell you, just a little bit ago when I tried to record this, I ran out of food because I talked too much without pausing. So let's not do that again. The next thing, while they're building the farm, let's dismiss this. Next thing, we have to figure out what is important again. Now, it's kind of up to you, but kind of not, because hint, hint, you need more people at some point to run more industries. And the only way to get people in, either by birth, which happens, or with this beacon. The beacon invites more people to your island. And what that also does is bring more resources to your island, because for some reason, whenever someone comes to your island, they give you some copper, some rubber, and some fuel, which you can produce for a long time. So getting more people is good, but then you also need space, and you need more food, and you need more container villages. And it's just like this process that keeps going, but it changes everything. So the next thing that I want is construction, so I can build the beacon next. In construction, Well, it's relatively straightforward. You can build more construction parts if you have iron and wood, which we will take care of in a second. And it lets you store items too, up to 180 products. Wonderful. So let's get started on that. Now, when I started this, I really wanted this excavator to see what it does, so I did that one first. Guess what? I died. It's not a given, but it's one of the things that happened to me. Cool. So the farm is being built. We still have a couple construction materials, but we don't have anything else at this point. So let's figure out how we get that. First, I would like a blast furnace. They look like this. They have several different outputs and a couple inputs. The inputs are for coal and iron or scrap metal, and the outputs are for steam, molten lava, depending on what you want to do. One thing that I learned is don't build too big too fast, because you will run out of materials or your trucks will just run back and forth or all those things. It's just start small and do what you need to do, but you can't min-max everything because and these are called recipes, all your recipes tell you how much you put in, how long it takes, and how much you get out. So you can go and figure out how this works. For example, one charcoal maker takes 40 units of time to make 4 pieces of coal, okay? One blast furnace takes 20 seconds of time, or 20 units of time takes 3 coal to create 8 molten iron. Cool. The lowest common denominator is 12 and 12. So 3 of these in 40 units of time would create 12 coal, but 2 of these would collect that. So 3 to 2 will be a ratio that could work. And you can play with that, and I probably did the math wrong, and someone correct me where I was wrong. But 2 of these use up 6 coals in 20 seconds, so in 40 seconds they use up 12 coals, where 3 of these create 12 coals in those 40 seconds. So after the first load, these should be good. So this is the next guy that we want to place. And this, honestly, is just a temporary guy. We don't need it forever. But in the beginning, there's no other way to get coal. So we get that one in there, get it built. Now, smokestack. It can take all of these items, and that is great. And look at this. When you have the correct item selected, it will tell you what the outputs are. In this case, the output is steam. Let's connect them. You can connect them like this, directly like I just did, or you can use pipes like this and connect them that way. Now, these 2 are hooked up to get to be able to produce whatever they want, and that is wonderful. Now not this guy, but this guy will say, hey, I don't have wood. How do you give me wood? The answer is you have to assign trucks to do it, because they won't pick it up themselves, but when you tell them to do it, they actually will, and they will just start harvesting in this area. Great, the farm is ready, and there's a crop schedule, or also a crop rotation. Each crop will tell you what it takes and what it makes. It takes 24 waters per month and a fertility of 10. You start out with 100% fertility, and that's great. But every time you plant this potato, it will take 10 fertility away, which is bad. So what you have to do is rotate your crops, in this case green manure, replaces 10% fertility every time, every 4 months. And that's wonderful. So what you have to do is just select them alternating or evenly, however you want to. And this should make sure that fertility stays pretty high all of the time, which is exactly what we want. We're never going to run out of food. Yay! So, new tutorial, iron melting. Yep, you can read all of this. This is what I told you. You have to assign a harvester. So there is a tutorial in here that will tell you a couple things that are going on, but what are we missing? This guy has created coal, and now it has stored 4 coal. Where should they go? Over here. And once the truck decides that's okay, that's what it's going to do. But then what? Well, we need some scrap metal. And when you start, this is all you can have for metal, essentially. So start recycling. And with some workers in here, the trucks will start picking up metal from there and bring it to this blast furnace. And that's awesome. Speed up a little bit. Construction is almost done, and that is nice. There's the scrap metal going in there. Now this one actually says, hey, I need coal now because I have metal, and that is wonderful. And then after a second, it will produce something. It will produce some exhaust, and will produce some molten iron. And there's this little bar. The little bar will eventually tell you, hey, I'm full. I can't do anymore. Now, almost everything in the game can be transported by truck. The exception, molten iron, or molten things in general from this blast furnace. And that's where this molten channel comes in. The molten channel cannot be raised. It has to be on the ground. Otherwise, you can't use it. Pretty simple. So you connect that one first, and everything else, every other pipe, everything else that you want to place here comes later. That's fine. Let's slow this down again, otherwise I'll forget things. The next thing you want is some way of taking this molten iron into something that's useful. In our case, the metal caster can take molten iron in 40 seconds to make real iron out of it. Now remember, we can create 8 irons every 20 seconds, so one of these blast furnaces can handle 2 metal casters. So let's do that. Connect the first one directly here, and that is nice. The second one, because I don't want to go too wide, just straight next to it. And now to connect all these channels together, all you have to do is a nice little drag. There you go. Now there's a little joiner or switch, however you want to call that. And we will build our metal casters. And we are almost done with a very basic beginning. Almost, because not yet. There's more research to do. Now, do we need a power beacon first, or do we need vehicles and mining first? That is hard to say. Right now we have about 38 workers available, and these metal casters only take 2. So you do have a choice right now. I will choose... Well, so the choices are, you can produce metal faster, which we are doing right now, and we're doing okay, or you can get a way of inviting more people in, which will cost more food, so you need another farm, but it's also a way of getting more resources because the people that come in bring you resources. So I feel like this is the right choice to go. For right now, that may change. So these guys are producing what they're supposed to produce. Excellent. And it becomes iron. What do you do with iron? Well, that's why we just built this guy. That was part of the research that we just completed for construction. We place this anywhere we want. Obviously, it has inputs, but the inputs are useless until you research conveyor belts, which will happen later on. So for right now, just put them somewhere that's not super far away from where your metal is produced, and that should be good. Another thing I would recommend is placing some type of storage that can store the construction parts when this internal storage is full. So we'll assign all that. Speed up the game a little again. We look at our food and see that our current consumption is still 1, so that's good. This one will produce in 4 months, if we get enough rain, 30 units of food. That's not a lot. So let's future-proof a little bit, get another farm in here. And we don't have irrigated farms yet, but these farms, once we have water, water productions, they will take water. Is that not lined up? No, that's not lined up. It's not lined up at all. Stop it. So when you tear down something, you get back all the production costs, which are arguably a good and a bad thing at the same time. I can tell you that you need it at times. Sometimes you don't, but sometimes you do need it. Now, when you place storages, they are stupid to begin. They're not going to store anything. You have to tell them what you want them to do, and in this case, I just want them to store construction parts. And I will show you later, hopefully, why I placed it this far away. Farm is done. Wonderful, it's collecting some water. I like to keep these alternating with each other. That means this farm is doing crops and this farm is idle and the other way around. That way we should always have a little bit more food incoming all the time. Assembler is ready. There's more tutorials for you to read if you really want to, but we already know what it is. So we just placed those 2 buildings. Excellent. Research for the power and beacon is going on, and life is pretty good. Now, iron is one heck of a resource that you want to keep. So I will add another storage very close to everything, really. I'll put this somehow in the middle. That way we can store it. You can define what you want to store at the time when you place it. You don't have to wait until later. But I like to store some iron here because we will expand all of this very, very soon. Not right now, but very, very soon. And then life will be better. This one requires a little bit of wood and a little bit of iron to make a couple construction parts. I think that is pretty self-explanatory. And we are doing pretty well. That's the start. And we're not dead yet. That's wonderful. But we are, I just saw a small queue here on the trucks. So we need to start figuring out how we get more vehicles and how we increase this production quickly. We only have a limited number of construction materials, so we can't just go do anything we want. But this is a great start. So next time, we'll do more. There's a lot more to research. We have just scratched the surface of this one, and if we're lucky, I won't die again within 3 episodes. So thank you guys for watching. I'll see you again soon. Bye.